Guys, your brand sucks. The good news is my guest today is someone who can help you transform your brand into something remarkable. Dan Antonelli is the owner of Kickcharge Creative, and over the past 28 years, he and his team have rebranded and branded over 2,000 different companies in the home services and contracting industries to help them stand out and grow their businesses much more profit. Dan wrote this amazing book called Branded Not Blanded. I read it, it's a really good read, and I wanted to hop on with Dan today to distill some of the main points inside this book that I highly recommend to anyone. What I love about Dan is his passion, he's down to earth, and everything he talks about just makes a lot of common sense. So get ready to take some notes and get some ideas flowing with today's guest, Dan Antonelli. All right, guys, I'm excited to be here with my buddy Dan Antonelli of Kickcharge Creative. We're gonna dive into brand and a whole bunch of topics around branding and brand building and growing your company. But before we get into that, I want to turn the mic over to Dan so he can give a little bit of an intro as to who he is, where he comes from, and why he is super qualified to be on here talking about the power of a brand. What's going on, Dan?
Hey, what's up, brother? Listen, so grateful for the opportunity to be here. I really appreciate the chance to speak on my favorite topic, which is, of course, branding. A little bit obsessed about it my whole career. We've got about 2,000 or so home service brands that we've created over the last 25 years or so. Something I'm super passionate about. Wrote a couple of books on branding. Last book I just wrote is called Branded, Not Blanded. And it really dives deep into, the thought process behind building a more disruptive home service brand, and just seeing so many mistakes made, so many challenges that people have with their existing brands. I said, let me get a book out there to serve the home service industry. And if you're existing business or you're looking to start a business, I think it provides a really good roadmap for people to follow. So I run an agency here in New Jersey, same state as you, the great state of New Jersey. I don't know if that's really true, if it's the great state of New Jersey, but we're here. We have about 22 employees right now, and this is our 28th year in business. So we'll do about 200 or so home service brands this year. We'll probably name about 25 to 30 companies, either name from scratch or rename existing companies. It's a great thing that we get to do here every day is we get to change lives of contractors. And I just am so blessed and honored that we get to do this day in and day out. And, 27 years later, I'm still just as passionate about it as I was when we first started. So it's a pretty cool thing we got.
Cool. Yeah, I read the book. Dan was nice enough to send me the book, Branded Not Blanded. And I read it. It was very engaging. You can feel Dan's passion in the book, a lot of case studies in there, a lot of stories about companies they've worked with, a lot of points that just make a lot of sense. I don't know if that's just me because I'm in marketing and business owner, but I know that everyone will get value out of this book. Home services, roofing, contracting, whatever type of company you have, there's so many good points in this book, and it's worth, if you implement what it says and what Dan talks about in the book, and not just hiring Dan or his company, but just implementing some of the basic common sense recommendations. Like, you're going to save a lot of money, you're going to make a lot of money, you're going to grow your business, you can build a more powerful, a more valuable company. So I highly recommend that. You can get it on Amazon and wherever books are sold, right, Dan?
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it on our site too at just kickcharge.com/books. We have it, I think, a little bit cheaper than Amazon, and sometimes I autograph it. It'll be worth hundreds down the road. So, it's definitely something you wanted to look into.
Man, I'm looking for the autograph in mine. I guess I didn't.
You know what happened? Yeah. Yours got shipped out when I was on vacation, so I couldn't autograph it for you.
All right. Well, that's okay. I appreciate that. But yeah, your audience, super lucky to be listening in, to watching two Jersey guys here on the podcast, on the show, for whatever that is worth. And Dan, you mentioned how you get to change contractors' lives. is talk about that drive and that burn for you as far as your motivation. 28 years in business, that is amazing right there. That's a huge accomplishment. So congrats on that. I'm sure it has to do with your why and what drives you and your team. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just really gratifying to be reminded on a daily basis of our why. So, I get texts, I get messages all the time from clients, maybe 3 months post rebrand or 6 months. And, it's just like, Dan, you guys have helped change our lives. And I share those messages with the team on a daily basis, because the people that are here, a lot of them actually came from bigger ad agency backgrounds, and they never felt like their work was making a difference. If they're working for a big Fortune 500 company and they help them sell a couple more, mobile phone devices or things like that, or cans of soup, it's not like they're changing people's lives in the process. And so when we get to see how it affects these companies, they're able to hire more people, charge more money for their work, grow their businesses, spend less on marketing. Like, those are all real things that happen. And, the team just gets really energized about that, and we continue to put out really, really premium high-end work. And we continue to push the boundaries. And we sort of live by the idea too, and I'm sure a lot of people, I think, follow this, is that we still sort of believe that nothing we do today is really good enough for tomorrow. So, we do something and we'll get this great feedback, we'll win some awards for it. And it's nice for the moment. And then you're like, oh shit, man, we got to do better now. Like, how do we top this? How do we get even a better brand out there? And that's, I think for 28 years or 27 years, I feel like that's what's driven me personally. Is it's cool to do something like that and to get acknowledgement and to have something out there that is really, really special. But I always look at that. I savor the moment for a fraction of time, and then I'm just like, all right, now we got to do something even better. And sometimes that's hard. Like just to have that mindset where everything we're doing, we're like, we have to do even better. Like, that's not good enough today. We're not going to do the same thing today. So that part is very challenging. We've won so many awards. Like, we won this Tops and Trucks. Like, actually, I have it here. This Tops and Trucks, we swept every single winner. So you can't really get better than that. But it's just like, well, next year we have to win every single category again. And so I just always believe that as owners, we want to keep doing better. We want to keep evolving, and we want to never be complacent. And I think the book talks a lot about that concept of complacency. And to me, I look at complacency as two things. One, it's an opportunity for those who are not complacent, right? And two, it's one of those things of recognizing that same notion that what got us here today is not going to get us to where we want to go in the future. So I think we're blessed to work with a lot of owners who share that mindset and who really believe that, the better days are ahead. And this is a critical step for them to help get to those better days.
Okay, fantastic. I love it. One of our core values here at Contractor Dynamics is continually learning and improving. And we do that every week through our meetings, especially our Monday team meetings. We're discussing ways to improve our training programs and our brand and our marketing, our content and everything. And we all feel it. Like, we're growing every single week, whether it's revenue or profit, or even if it's not revenue or profit, we're growing internally, providing more value to our clients and our market, and growing as leaders, which is awesome. So I love that you talked about that. So we're going to dig into complacency and standing out and purple cow and things like that. But first off, the term brand can be a loaded term, maybe mean a lot of things to different people. Maybe it's, misconstrued. Maybe people don't even know what it means. Can you define that for us? What is a brand? What is branding? So we're all kind of on the same page as we navigate this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly one way to look at branding is what people say about your company behind your back, right? So if they were at a party describing what it was like working with your roofing company, what would they actually say about that? Another thing to look at is we look at brand as being the summation of a lot of touch points. Your social media channels, your collateral, your website, your truck wraps, your uniforms, your business cards. All those things together comprise the brand. So that's why we look at the logo as being so critical because the logo is going to build those other aspects of it. It's going to build from there. So if you don't get that logo and that initial part correct, those other channels will ultimately not perform as well. And, obviously in the book, we talk a lot about the idea that, the weaker the brand, the more money you will need to spend to market it. And that kind of goes along with having that really solid foundation so that you can build an effective brand that stands out, that's disruptive, that delivers promise, instills a lot of themes like honesty, integrity, trustworthiness. Those are all aspects of what goes into building that brand. But yeah, it's a word that gets thrown around. I sort of look at it and say it's not really that complex, but people seem to sometimes want to make it more complex than it really is.
Okay, totally get it. I normally talk about brand as your reputation. So maybe similar to like what people talk about behind your back, or what people think about your company when they hear your company's name or before they contact you. So all those things go into what for me is really reputation.
Yeah.
So you work with a lot of home service companies. We talked about the roofing industry before we hit record. That is our industry. You worked with several roofing companies over the past year. What have you seen? Why do home services, roofing contractors, is it just they don't understand brand, or like, why do they ignore it? Why don't they invest any time and energy and money into it?
I'm not sure that they ignore is the right word. I think they don't understand it as well as maybe they should. And it's not like that's something that a lot of people have talked about, or that even like my book, like the whole reason why I wrote the book is because there isn't sort of a roadmap to follow as you're considering starting a home service business. So what are the first steps? Well, naming is the first step, right? So many home service contractors get that part wrong. Right from day one, it's wrong. Like, it's not done correctly, and they're going to struggle to overcome that challenge, right? So I think, the idea also of looking what's around you. So you look at all these other home service companies or even roofing companies, and if you were to go on Google and just Google, roofing company logos, and you're going to see a whole mess of roofing company logos that 95% of them look exactly the same, right? It's just a different word underneath. And so you look at that and you think that that's the way you should brand, because that's what everyone else is doing, right? So why would I suddenly do something radically different than what everyone else is doing? That seems to be working for them. So I'm going to do something that's just like that, right? So that actually puts them again in a poor position to start, because now they essentially are starting out to build a business that looks like everyone else's. So why would Mrs. Jones remember or think anything unique about that brand when it looks just like everyone else's? So getting into the mindset of that it's okay to be disruptive. It's okay to do something that feels a little bit different and outside the norm of what everyone else is doing, because ultimately that's how you build disruption. I mean, that's, again, the whole theory of purple cow is really related to the idea of doing something that feels different. If some people may not know the story of the purple cow and Seth's book, but if you were driving along the countryside, you saw cow after cow after cow. Like the first cow you saw, you'd think that was cool, and then by the time you saw another 50 of them, they blend in. But then suddenly you saw a purple one. Oh my God, there's a purple cow out there. That's crazy, right? So think about branding in the same sense as what can you do as a company that is disruptive, that's unique, that's memorable, so that when the time comes for that homeowner to need service, they are literally typing in your name instead of roofing contractor near me or something like that. So that's, I want to say that's the theory, but it's not theory because it's been proven to work. So it's not really a theory. It's factual that's how you get sticky in the consumer's mind, is you do something that feels different.
Yeah, for sure. We talk about it in my content. I talk about it in terms of generating leads through your brand, right? So people are, like I said, typing in your company's name, not just roofing contractor, air conditioning, or whatever it might be. And that makes a world of difference. And you touch on it in the book. I touch on it a lot in terms of you're able to command higher prices or price based on your value. Your closing rate is going to be higher. Can you go into that a little bit? Like when you have that brand dialed in, maybe the second and third order consequences, positively that people aren't thinking about in terms of, hey, more profit, happier team members, things like that.
Absolutely. The idea of higher average tickets. has been shown and proven again to be another benefit of the rebrand, because you have a lot of companies and they're struggling to try to get higher money or higher value for their work, and the homeowner doesn't see it. They don't understand why they should be charged more or why they're paying more with your company. And a lot of times that's because it's been not illustrated properly from the beginning. So whether they saw the truck, whether they hit the website, the guy showed up, wasn't in uniform, doesn't have all the right things, then the homeowner automatically doesn't believe that you should be a premium home service contractor. So people have to remember that the whole point of the branding is to help that consumer believe something about your company before you even get the chance to ring the doorbell. Right. So those are all those touch points we talked about on that sort of wheel analogy. Right. So when they saw the truck, when they went to the social media, when they read some of the reviews online about your brand, what did they think afterwards? Did they think, oh my God, this guy's going to be so cheap? Or did they think, wow, this company really has their act together. If I hire them and they're more expensive, at least I'll know that they'll be around next year if something goes wrong, or at least I know I'll be treated fairly or honestly. And so helping her, and typically it's a woman who is making that purchasing decision, having the brand speak to her, and sort of make sure you address her fears. Well, what are the fears that she has about who she's choosing to work with? Well, she's worried that she might get ripped off. She's worried about who's coming into her home. She's worried about the stereotypes against home service contractors, where she's heard so many stories of people getting ripped off, and she's afraid she's going to be the next victim. So how do all the things I'm putting out in the universe, basically about your brand, address those fears, address those concerns, make her feel like, oh my God, yeah, this is the company for me because I trust them. I think they're honest. I'm not going to get ripped off. And yeah, I think if something does go wrong, especially in the roofing, like, hey, you're going to put up this roof, I'm sure it's going to be watertight for the first couple of years, but what happens after year 5 or year 10? You think this company is going to still be around to honor that warranty that they sold me? Or am I going to be screwed at that point, because I went with the cheapest vendor? I don't know that they're going to be around next year. So you see a lot of sales guys struggle with the higher average tickets, mainly because they don't have a strong brand behind them. It's the same reason why do I pay more for an Apple laptop versus a Dell laptop or a Microsoft-based laptop? Because I believe that Apple builds a better product. So I'm willing to pay more for that. It's the same thing, as you deal with home consumers and marketing your home services. How do I build value? How do I have them feel something positive about that experience before you get to ring the doorbell? You ring the doorbell, you can have the best sales training in the world. You can have all those processes dialed in, but if she still doesn't connect with that brand, you're going to have a much harder time. You're going to have harder close ratios, and you're not going to have higher conversions on your websites. Like, it just translates across so many different things.
Yeah, there's an expectation about, like, when we see a company online, offline, are they going to be higher priced? Am I sure that I'm going to get exactly what I want? Or is it going to be a little bit of a gamble? Just thinking about it when you were talking about it. Last week, my family and I stayed, we were on vacation, and on the way down there to the Outer Banks, we stayed in a Marriott in Virginia, and it was like a subpar experience. And, that's, we were talking about it and just kind of like some things that just weren't great about it. And I was like, well, it's a Marriott. Like, I've stayed in a bunch of Bonvoy Marriott properties. Usually they're good. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's hit or miss. But if you were to go stay in like a W or like a nicer, brand hotel, you have a higher level of certainty that that's going to be a great experience, and that there's going to be less risk of like something going wrong or it not being up to your standards. So same thing, with a contracting company brand. Like, you can go with the cheap guy, or you can go with the premium one where there's no risk, and there's 100% certainty that you are going to get what you want.
100%. And I think the saddest part too, if you think about it, is a lot of these companies, especially the ones that are following like best practices, they actually deliver a good service, right, for the homeowner. It's just, if you were to judge them on everything that they present to that home consumer, it's a bigger leap to get there, right? So wouldn't it be better if that homeowner already felt that you are a premium home service provider, instead of them learning about that after you actually get the job, if you're lucky enough to get the job in the first place. So even looking at it from representing who you are today, that's a big question I get asked often, is how do I know when it's time to rebrand? And I always say it's time to rebrand when the level of service that your company provides doesn't match the visuals that personify it, right? So if you don't look as good as you really are, you may not get the opportunity to prove how good you really are.
Yeah, then you're the best kept secret, right? Not many people know about you.
Right, exactly.
Look as good as you are. I love that. Can you talk, Dan, about you might have touched on this in the book a little bit, but one of the challenges in home services and contracting roofing is like, man, I can't find and retain the right people, and people are always leaving me. Can you talk about the power of a brand in terms of building your team and your culture and keeping people and all that good stuff?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, a lot of times when you see owners, lamenting on the fact that we can't find qualified people or no one wants to work for us, you look at what will happen if you were an employee, as far as, okay, well, what kind of truck am I going to be driving? What do my uniforms look like? What kind of support am I going to get with, if I'm in the sales side of things? What does the collateral look like? What do all those things look like? And a lot of times it doesn't look great. And you have to ask yourself the question. You have to say, well, does it look like a place I would want to work at? You look at some of the, the real top players in the home service space, like Tommy Mello. If you go to his facility in Phoenix and you walk in there, there's no way that you walk in there thinking that this isn't a place that I want to be a part of, right? Just because of the way it's branded, because of the way the training facility looks like. So many of these companies, struggle with that because it just doesn't even look like a place that I want to be a part of. Like, how many people are really super proud when they leave work to keep branded stuff on, like to wear branded hats on, to keep the uniforms on, to be seen outside of work hours representing the brand. And sometimes it's just like, the stuff is dated. It just looks, it's not something that's working very well. And so it becomes a benefit of rebranding that most companies don't start the conversation with fully understanding. So a lot of companies come to us and they're like, Dan, we want to rebrand and we want to get the new truck wraps. We want to do, some maybe new marketing materials. And then they find out afterwards, like, holy shit, like this totally changed culture. This really re-energized the team. This made it easier for us to recruit people because it looks like a much better organization to be a part of. So that becomes sort of the thing, an ancillary benefit that a lot of companies don't start. Like, most people don't say, hey, Dan, we want to rebrand because we want a better culture. Like, that's not usually the way the conversation goes, but that's actually what happens subsequent to the rebrand, is it re-energizes basically the culture. And it also gives people an opportunity to feel like, I want to be part of this. So you have to obviously look at, of course, pay and all those other things go into it, right? I mean, I'm not going to say a pretty logo is going to solve all your recruitment problems, but certainly it will help, and it will help people feel better about choosing to work with you.
Yeah, 100%. And you mentioned Tommy Mello. He talks about employees as internal clients. I believe that's the term he uses.
Yeah.
It's so true. Like, most companies don't do anything to attract and retain their internal clients, their team members. And just like anything else in business, it takes intention. It just doesn't happen by chance, right?
And he's a great example too of someone that was, by all benchmarks, there was almost no reason why he should ever rebrand, right? He was at like $35 million in revenue a year when he decided to rebrand. Well, who the hell does that? Who does that? Who thinks that that's a good idea, right? But he knew, again, at that point, that what he had, it was fine to get him to where he was, but it wasn't going to get him to where he wanted to go. And I think 3 years post rebrand, he was up $150, $200 million in revenue. So was it because of the shiny new brand? No, it wasn't 100% because of a shiny new brand. I mean, Tommy's a genius in itself, but it certainly changed a lot about culture. It changed a lot about how he was able to brand to those internal customers and even the external customers. And he was a great example of having a brand that didn't represent the level of service that A1 was known for at A1 Garage, right? So he's trying to sell premium, but his brand still looked somewhat amateurish. I mean, at the end of the day, it just didn't look polished. And, we made a lot of changes. We very specific in colors that we chose for him. A lot of things were very deliberate about how we came up with his brand strategy. But, obviously he's crushing it. And like, it's just been a good example of someone that didn't say we are too big to rebrand. No. So we've done guys that are at that level, owners that are at that level, and then we've done startups as well. Like it's the same strategy, but you definitely see some of the larger companies get very complacent about where they are and use that as the rationale as to why they should never change because it's working. Look, we got to here because of it. And, again, and I look at that as opportunity for those that embrace the change, because if those guys are going to sit on the sidelines and be complacent with everything that they've been doing, I think that that's great. Awesome. Let them sit there and be complacent. Well, we're going to come in, we're going to start taking pieces of their world while they sit there on the sidelines, just collecting their checks and being happy with status quo.
Love it. Yeah, I think you talk in the book, the line you use is like they've grown in spite of their poor brand, not because of it, right?
Exactly.
So they didn't grow because they had a great brand. And yes, Dan, you mentioned that a few times in the book in different places where there's a hesitancy of the bigger companies to rebrand, whether it's 30 million or 10 million, like, oh man, it's like too much work to change the fleet, change everything. So how does that conversation go? How do you overcome that hesitation?
It's interesting because you see the consolidation happening in the industry. You see the PE money coming in. We actually have a fair amount of PE clients that have a portfolio of companies, and we're rebranding a lot of them. But you also see some PE-owned companies, again, they have a very, very, consistent return on their investment. And no one really has sort of the guts to say, oh my God, like our brand sucks. We should invest in this because we'll have a little short-term hit on our EBITDA, right? But we're going to basically maximize our opportunities out there. We'll actually be able to spend less money on our marketing if we actually do this correctly. And so there's not as much appetite in the PE world that they want to go change something that they think has been working. So again, to me, that just again leaves opportunity for those that understand the fundamentals. So when you look at owners and people that say the marketing people, they're like, oh well, you have to spend 10% to grow or 12% to grow. And, again, the weaker the brand, the more you need to be in double-digit territory. But, I mean, we have so many examples of guys spending 5% that are growing double digits or triple digits. Well, how are they doing that? Well, they don't need to spend as much on their marketing because they're top of mind for the consumers when that consumer needs service. So, it's like the irony, like I posted this the other day on my Facebook, my personal Facebook page, and I said something like, it's really wildly ironic to see owners who sort of have no issue. I mean, I'm sure they're not happy about it, but they think nothing of spending 20 grand a month on Google, like LSA and PPC, but you tell them it's 20 grand to rebrand and that's too expensive. Well, right. Like the reason why you're spending so much money online is because no one knows who the hell you are because you blend in with everybody. Fix that and spend less online. Like I want to say it's not rocket science, but like if everyone knew your name, you wouldn't need to be paying Google to put your name in front of everybody, right? Because you'd show up organically. So it's kind of weird sometimes, like just looking at what people do and you're like, well, this is why you're spending 20 grand a month because your trucks look like crap, right? You blend in. There's nothing compelling about your story. There's nothing unique about, why I would want to do business with you. So that's why you need to spend so much money on your advertising. Like fix the foundation before you start spending money on advertising.
Right. And I would argue the longer you go without rebranding and the longer you go without like creating that brand, you're just going to have to spend more and more money on Google and things like that, not less, because you're competing with the big PE-backed firms and the lead aggregators and everyone like that. It's just going to get more expensive, not less over time.
100%. And again, the language I use, I think, is like the most expensive logo you'll ever buy is one you paid the least for. And you have to think about that for a second. But it's because it's costing you in missed opportunities. It costs you in lower average tickets, recruitment costs. Like there's a whole host of things that's costing you in terms of how much more you need to spend because that foundation isn't done correctly.
Yes, absolutely. And to the audience listening and watching this, Dan's talking about naming your company and wrapping trucks and logos and all these things. Get the book because he goes into like actionable like detail on how to like start thinking about these things, how to take action on them, what not to do, what to do. And it's really it's it's a playbook on how to, build your brand. So if you want to learn more about any of these topics that Dan's mentioning, just pick up the book for sure. So talking about we touched on the money a little bit. When you don't have that strong brand, you're going to overpay for marketing. It's funny. I was just DMing with one of my friends who owns a contracting company in the Midwest yesterday. And he was like, man, just like we're crushing it, having a record year, spending 2.5% on marketing. And just like the brand is so strong, doing a lot of content, doing a lot of Instagram content. So I was like, good for you, man. And he's like, yeah, my competitors like are just they're scratching their heads trying to figure out like how I'm doing it, right? And I'm sure the competitors are like, what's he doing on Google, or what's the secret? And, there really is no secret. It's building that brand.
Yeah. And that's, again, just the idea of being visible in the community. How do we build a brand that becomes sticky and top of mind when that consumer needs service? Instead of roofing, repair near me, it's just typing in your name, and you're going to win every time on your branded search, especially if you have a name that is very brandable, or a branded name, not a generic name. So those are things that I don't think people understand the connection between the two. Like, we literally just had a case study of a company that does web design for mainly HVAC companies, and they had basically built the websites for 25 Kickcharge clients, and they compared the results to 25 non-Kickcharge clients. Okay, so what was the amount of inbound branded keyword searches for their name on a monthly basis? And the Kickcharge clients were seeing a 10x return, as far as 10x number of branded keyword searches in comparison. The average was like about 450 for a Kickcharge client with a Kickcharge brand versus a non-Kickcharge client, which is about 40 to 45. So that's like a 10x number of branded keyword searches that are coming in, because, again, top of mind awareness within the community is really taking hold. And then the conversion rates were even more interesting. So the conversion rates on a branded website with a Kickcharge brand versus non was 12% for a Kickcharge versus 6% for a non. So it was basically double the conversions. And if you want to extrapolate that out, that equates to about 50 more leads a month of one versus the other. So wow. Again, I feel like that crazy ad that people always say, like, how much would you pay for another 50 leads per month for your HVAC company? But it was the reality. And that's just a month. So, times 12, and that's 6,000 more, it's a lot, you know what I mean? So, just recognizing the relationship to what happens out on the street versus what happens online. There's a direct connection between those two elements. And that's why it's so important to get that truck correctly, to make sure that truck is dialed in and designed in a way that is disruptive, that is memorable, that is legible. Like, even just legibility, it's like, feels like common sense to me. And like so many of these truck wraps, you can't even read the name of the company, or you can't even tell what they do. Like, so, fixing those things and the relationship that has with what happens online, people are like, well, what does one have to do with the other? Like, it has everything to do with each other, So a lot of people, don't recognize that relationship, and they sort of, look at that truck wrap expense as being really costly, but yet they'll go spend twice as much on a billboard that lasts 30 days. It's like, do you know how many more impressions your truck gets versus the billboard on a monthly basis, and how much more value it has? Because that's a truck wrap that's going to last 4 to 5 years. So it's the cheapest way to get your name out by far. Like, nothing's even close. So why not make sure that you make the most use of that canvas and build something that will be memorable, disruptive? Colors, again, too. I talk a lot about colors in the book. You see so many roofing companies with colors that all seem the same. It's like HVAC companies using red and blue. Okay, like everybody else. So why would I ever remember your brand colors? So thinking about it from that perspective, I think, is something that's really important.
Lots and lots of common sense. Yeah, Dan, in the contracting industry, roofing industry, we see it every day. It's like, well, I know that if I buy 20 leads and I can sell 5 of them, like, I can calculate my return on that, right? With branding and brand building, top of mind awareness, it's a little bit more elusive. And I know that in the book, you go into that, how to calculate the ROI of a brand. So can you go into that a little bit, like how people should think about that? You just mentioned a couple things, branded searches, conversion rates, and things like that. what are some of the other things that you help your clients with as far as I'm going to invest X amount with Kickcharge and in my brand, like, how do I measure that? What am I going to get from that?
Yeah, I mean, you certainly have to recognize that it's long game. Is it going to generate an immediate lead for you? If that's your biggest obstacle right now is, oh my God, we got to fill the schedule up with jobs. No, that's what you use LSA for and some of those other channels. Will it allow us to spend less money on the marketing? Will it allow us to have a lower cost per lead? Will we get more branded searches? Yeah, 100% you will. Will it allow you to even, increase your average tickets? Like we had an example, and I know he's mentioned in the book for Jason Bueller from Bueller Air in Jacksonville, Florida. I mean, that was a $2.2 million company 5 years ago, and now they're going to be doing $20 million in revenue, and his ad spend is less than 5%. So, awesome. It's like, well, why is he spending 5% on advertising when everyone else around him is spending twice as much or more and not growing nearly as fast? Well, what is he doing right? Like, obviously, you have the key elements of great leadership, great management team, great sales process, things like that. But we were talking the other day even just about average tickets. And I said, I'm like, dude, what was your average tickets before we started the rebrand? And his average tickets were like 6,500 around. Yeah, it's actually 6,000, right? So today his average ticket is 13,000. Now, of course, there's inflation, right? So I get there's some inflation over the last 5 years, but I don't think it's completely doubled, right? So how do you get a higher average ticket now? Well, again, I've been able to demonstrate value. I've been able to have people believe in this brand. I have people that understand that we're going to be around to service their company. So I think looking at ROI in terms of that. I mean, even if you could raise your price 10% with a better brand, how long do you think it would take to pay for itself? It's kind of a no-brainer, I think, in a lot of instances, but also don't underestimate how much work it is, right? So it's real nice to envision your newly wrapped fleet of trucks, and it's so pretty, and I love the new uniforms we've got for the guys and all that other stuff. But you have to remember that there's some pain that goes along with it. It takes work to coordinate all these different things that have to happen. We help with a lot of those things as far as the communications that go out to the customers about why you rebranded, things like that. But it's not something that is easy. So I don't want anyone to go into that illusion. I also don't want people to think that, hey, I'm just going to get a shiny new brand and that's going to solve all my problems. If you don't have the foundation dialed in, it's not going to work. Because then I'm going to present you as an amazing company. You're going to go ring the doorbell and then you're going to screw it all.
Right.
So like you've got to have your processes dialed in. You've got to have everything really functioning from an operational standpoint to maximize the opportunity of a rebrand.
Right on. Love it. Man, I really love this concept of those who do not build their brand and are unremarkable are overspending on marketing. Always. Like, that never goes down. And that's exactly what we help our clients with too, although a little different from Kickcharge. We are not designing truck wraps. We are training our clients, roofing companies, on how to create their own video content and run their own marketing and become 5 Mile famous, become that top of mind company in their local area. Most of our clients that we work with spend about 4% of their revenue every year on marketing, not the 10% or over that a lot of agencies will tell you that you have to spend. If you're investing the time and the energy and the creativity into building your brand and telling your story on video, on social media, and doing some of the things that Dan is talking about, then you can drastically lower that marketing spend and get better results because you're getting people that are looking for you. They're Googling your company name, not just any old contracting company in your local area. So that's what we do inside our 12-month marketing training program, specifically for roofing companies. If you want to learn any more about that, click the link below or head on over to our website at contractordynamics.com. You can learn a little bit more about what we do, how we do it, see a lot of our clients in there and the wins that they're having by running their own marketing machines inside their companies. So I just want to share that with you guys. One of the reasons I am loving this conversation with Dan right now is because our values, our philosophies, and align, and what we work on with our clients really aligns. We attack it from a couple different angles, but it's the same thing at the end of the day. So I wanted to share that with you. Head on over to contractordynamics.com to learn some more, and back to the interview with Dan. Is there a right time to brand or rebrand? Like, say, I'm a startup company. I'm starting my business next month, or I'm a solo operator with one truck, or like, is there a right time to do it?
Well, I mean, if you can do it as a startup, that is absolutely the best thing that you can ever do. It'll give you the best chance of success because everything from that point forward will integrate the brand in a manner that it's designed to perform well in, right? It's going to represent what you want to showcase to that home consumer. It's always going to be more expensive to do it later on because now you have to redo everything. You got to redo the trucks, redo the uniforms, redo the website. So the best time to do it is obviously if you can do it as a startup. If you can't, then I always try to say be introspective, right? Put your ego aside as an owner and say, does this brand adequately reflect who we've become today? And that's real simple. Like, do we look as good as we actually are? And that's a hard question. There's a lot of ego in that question, right? Because, oh my God, like maybe the owner created the logo himself. Maybe he was part of it and he's so proud of it because this is his baby, right? But at the end of the day, is it really representing who he is today? Because most people aren't going to tell him. The employees aren't going to tell the owner that, hey, you know what, boss, this logo sucks, man. These trucks are awful. Or the web design company or the digital marketing company, they're not going to tell the owner, hey, you know what, if we improved your logo, you'd get, basically twice as many leads from the website or conversions from the website. So it's not a conversation that happens that often. And a lot of times too, the owners just don't know. Like they don't know what the deficiencies are. They don't even understand maybe why the truck doesn't work or what the challenges are with what they're putting out as far as presentation and what they're projecting. So, I think the simplest way is to try to be as introspective as possible. Take yourself out of it, sort of discount your ego and just say, is this really who we are today? Or you could even like go online and Google roofing logos. And if you see your logo among the 50 that are on the screen, ask yourself the same question. Well, why would Mrs. Jones remember my brand among a sea of those? What is something different? Like, how can I be different? So we try to really avoid the painfully obvious symbols for roofing when we're designing roofing brands. Why? Well, because I know I can't design a different and unique way to have a rooftop on your logo that won't look like 30 other roofing contractors. So it doesn't make sense for me to put another brand that looks similar to what's already out there. So that's another part too. If your brand really doesn't stand out among all your competitors, your top 5 competitors, and they all look similar to yours, why would Mrs. Jones remember yours compared to theirs, right? So color, what style you're using, what does the truck look like? If they all look the same, then again, just keep paying Google more because that's what it means.
Absolutely. Love that, Dan. Thank you. I wanted to touch on this too, because it's extremely important. It's a motivation of mine. And I believe yours after reading the book is the risk or the hidden costs of just going with like a crowdsourced logo designer, a bad marketing company, and then like the responsibility that marketing companies and PR agencies and branding companies have to really like know what they're doing to serve their clients, because it can make or break a business in someone's life, right? So you get pretty serious about that in the book. So yeah, unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, we really look at that responsibility as a sacred one. So we live by the notion that we design as if lives are at stake. I teach wrap design to other sign companies and to other artists and graphic designers, and that's one thing that I continue to stress is the responsibility that you have to that home service owner who's trusted you with building a brand that will impact their bottom line, impact their business. You better know what you're doing to take on that responsibility, because that responsibility, for us is sacred. So, the problem with crowdsourcing, listen, there's a lot of theft that goes on crowdsourcing. There's a lot of copyright infringement, trademark infringement. We get a lot of our brands ripped off, which sucks, not only because it just means that company then has to strip everything off that's using that trademark logo. But it's just wasted time. It's like invest in it properly from day one. And then like, you won't have to go through this. But like, I hate when I get the email or the Facebook message from a friend of mine, and so many people know what we do and our work, and they're like, this dude stole your logo. And you go on their website, and it's on their website, it's on 10 of their trucks, and my client owns that trademark. Well, they send them the cease and desist, and like all that work, all that money is now down the drain. And on a crowdsourced site, you're certainly not going to get reimbursed from the designer who sold you the thing that he ripped off, because 9 out of 10 times he's in India or overseas somewhere in Fiverr or 99 Designs. They basically insulate themselves from the whole process, so they have zero responsibility. So hire someone that's local, someone that you know, someone with experience, someone with a proven track record. I mean, that would be the best advice. But I would definitely go with someone local before I'd go crowdsourcing, because your liability or your ability to pursue someone if something goes horribly wrong is really limited with any of those online sources. And you think about how are those guys able to make a living? There's no other way to really make a living on a crowdsourced site if you're a graphic designer without basically cutting corners and taking shortcuts. And a lot of times it's just ripping off other people's work. So.
Right, 100%. Yeah. And again, Dan goes into this in the book as far as like how to make the right decisions, how to trademark and copyright and all that good stuff. So definitely worth a look into that stuff. So Dan, I want to wrap it up in a couple of minutes, go into a lightning round with some fun questions to finish it up. But before we go there, anything else that I didn't cover that you want to make sure that you communicate regarding branding and all this good stuff we've been talking about?
I think we covered really a lot of the really important tips in the book. I think the nice thing that you see happen post rebrand is just the energy that it brings back into a company, not only just from the employee perspective, but the owners really, I feel like get this second wind where they're super energized about the direction that the company is taking. And you almost can't put a price on that either. What is that worth to you to be able to infuse that energy back into the company outside of what it's going to do for everything else in terms of the money and things like that? That's really, I think, one of the hidden benefits of rebranding that we love to see and we love to experience it. When I get to meet these guys at these trade shows and just like, they're just elated, like they're just so energized and they're so stoked about where they're going. And it's just really cool to be a part of that process with them.
Yeah, for sure. I remember you making that point in the book, and that makes so much sense. You're confident, you're energized, and that spills over into your team, and then they're more confident when they go to the door and sit at the kitchen table and have more conviction in what they're selling and offering and providing, and that just helps everyone win. So that's huge. Thanks for mentioning that. Do you have time for a couple of minutes, some fun lightning round questions, Dan?
Yeah, hit me, man. I'm ready.
Cool. I know you talk about the power of a story and communicating that in your business and your marketing. No secret that you have a passion for cycling. I knew that before I even contacted you, and there's a bike right there in the background. So tell us about that. That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I've been racing bicycles for about 20 years or so, or 25 years. And competitively, although I should put that in quotes because I was never great at it. I was okay at it. But cycling is a really hard sport to be really good at. I had to give it up a couple of years ago because I wound up having heart surgery, because I look like the poster child for cardiovascular disease, right? But now I still ride, but I just ride more so for kind of fun. And I still ride probably about 100 to 140, 150 miles a week, depending on the season. So I think a lot of times my best ideas come outside on a bicycle, because there's no interruptions. I'm very focused. I live out here in the sticks of New Jersey, so there's not a lot of traffic or interactions with anything other than cows and cornfields. So I'm able to really kind of focus and really think clearly. And I think, you can't put a price on what that dopamine basically does to a person. And it's so important, I think, for everyone's mental health to get out there and exercise and really take care of their body.
Awesome. That's cool. It's definitely something that, helps people connect. And for me, it's running, getting those ideas and just getting that dopamine and vitamin D and all that good stuff. Yeah. I love it. Mental health. Another thing, Dan, I noticed on your social media is it looks like you recently built a beach house, I think in Delaware. I wanted to mention that because A, it looks amazing. And I live at the beach here, so I'm a beach guy, but also like, I think it encourages people to set big goals and dream big, and really like you're showing how over time you've been able to work hard and build an amazing company that provides an opportunity for you and your family to do things like that. So yeah, talk about that journey a little bit.
So believe it or not, like that house is a result, obviously, of a ton of hard work, right? That allowed us to be able to do that. But that really came about after my surgery. So I found out I had 2 blockages in my widowmaker. Very lucky that I didn't die from it. A second opinion basically saved my life, right? So I got the heart surgery, and I came home from the hospital, and I couldn't really work too much. If you have, hopefully you'll never have to have bypass surgery, but they basically cut you in half and tie you back together, right? It's not fun, right? So I was watching a lot of those home renovation shows with my wife, and I basically said to her, I said, we were watching, beachfront renovations, and I said, why haven't we done this yet? And the reason why most people say that they haven't done something yet is because everyone thinks that they have more time. Everyone thinks that there's this tomorrow that you can do all these things. And when they wheeled me into that OR, you really think about that and you really say, shit, man, like this could be it. Like this could really be game over for me. And if it was, like that would suck because I thought I was going to have time to do all this other stuff. So we're watching these shows, and I just said to her, I said, you know what? Like we grew up on the Jersey Shore. It's like, well, why aren't we getting a beach house? Like we've been saving like our entire lives. Like we never spend money on ourselves, right? So why can't we? And we couldn't really come up with an answer other than the fact that we thought there was more time. And there really almost was no more time. Like the heart guys said, dude, you would have been out on the bike and they would have just found you on the side of the road. So that's like, I look at every day as that gift that I've got. Like, so I've got about 2.5 years worth of bonus days because I shouldn't even be here right now. So you have to look at that mindset, and you have to remember that, first of all, it's a gift that you're here today, and that tomorrow is promised to no one. And so we bought a piece of land and we built our dream home on the Delaware shore, and it's amazing. We've been in it for about 3 weeks, that it is just completed. And it was surreal. Like it was bizarre to me because like we don't do stuff like that. But I felt like, if it wasn't for the issues with the heart, like we never would have done it probably. So like when I posted on Facebook, it wasn't like, I didn't want it to be looked at like I was bragging on the fact that I bought a house. It was more that I wanted people to recognize that you don't know what's around the corner. You don't know what tomorrow may bring. And to really recognize that every day is a gift and to make the most of what you have. I'm not saying go buy things that you can't afford or act stupidly with your financials, right? But I'm just saying you keep saving and saving and saving and saving. And then you realize, yeah, there's no hearse with luggage racks that's following me to the funeral home, right? So what am I waiting for? At what point do you say you have enough that you could actually do something? And to me, the investment in the home is not just for a cool place to hang out, but a cool place for us to build memories with my family, right? So what's the value on that? How much are you willing to spend to create more memories with your family? So I look at that heart thing, quite honestly, as the best thing that ever happened to me. It made me a better leader here because I gave up so much control here to people that were really thirsty for control. But I felt like I needed to be a part of so many decisions. And now I recognize I don't need to be part of 90% of the decision making that happens here. I have other people that run this agency and they kill it. We've done so much better since I basically stopped running it. And I'm okay with admitting that because I'm like a creative guy. I'm not like a guy that wants to do HR and payroll and stuff like that. So it honestly was literally the best thing that ever happened to me. And I'm so grateful for having that second chance to get to experience these things and to be able to change more lives too, which is the other piece of it. Like I got so re-energized afterwards because I'm like, there's so many more people we can help. There's so many more lives we can change, So the shore house, yeah, it's been amazing. Like it's just surreal when I'm in it because it just doesn't feel real. Like that we did something like this.
Wow. I'm so glad I asked that question. That was such an amazing answer. Thank you. And I can't help but draw the parallel. It's almost like you've rebranded your life right after the hard
Yeah.
things. You got that new energy you're talking about. You're impacting more people. That's awesome, Dan. Thanks for sharing. Where can people find you to learn more about Kickcharge and you follow your journey, whatever that might be?
Sure. You could go to kickcharge.com. You could always hit me up, Dan at kickcharge.com. If you want to hit me up on social, just send me a message or something. And, we're happy to help if you need a hand, even if you don't ever hire us. I always want to put this out there too. Like, if you're about to do something, about to wrap your trucks, about to put this new brand that you've been working on and you want some feedback on it, listen, it's not about I'm trying to sell you on something that we do, but a lot of times I can just give you some tips on how to make it better. Right. So if you're, even especially with the truck wraps, I see a lot of things go out that it's like, oh, if they had just done this, it would have been so much more effective. So if you got something you're working on and, you just want another set of eyes, like I promise you, I'm not going to sell you anything. But if I can help you build a better brand just with a couple of tips or just talking to you a little bit about what you're proposing to do and help you in that journey, please let me help you with that because, I'm so fortunate with what this trade has done for me. If I could give back in any way, that's ultimately, what I want to do.
Wow. Thank you so much for that offer. That is amazing, guys. And I'm sure everyone can tell that is a genuine offer that Dan put out there. So, wow. Thank you. Very inspiring stuff. Dan, thanks so much for sharing. Guys, we'll include the notes. We'll include some links below to the book and Dan's website and things like that so you guys can dig in and learn more. And man, I'm just so grateful for you spending the time with us. So thank you, Dan.
Thanks for having me on, brother. I really appreciate it.
All right. Talk soon. All right, guys. I don't know about you, but I'm excited. I'm energized. I know that we need to do some work on our brand as much as we do already. I know that we can take it to that next level. I think you'll agree with me that Dan has a wealth of experience. He's got a wealth of knowledge. He shared a lot of actionable tips with us that, again, just make a lot of common sense. And how about that story at the end about why he and his wife decided to finally build that beach house of their dreams? That was super inspiring. I'm so glad that he opened up and shared that with us. So I will include all the links below to Dan's website, how to get in touch with him, how to buy the book. And again, I mentioned it a few times, I get nothing for this, guys. Dan was gracious enough to mail me a copy of the book. I read it. It's really good. It's, for those of you who don't like a lot of words, it's got a lot of pictures, it's got case studies, it's got examples. He talked about truck wraps. It's got examples of truck wraps before and afters. It's just a really good book. So I highly recommend going to check that out at kickcharge.com or on Amazon, wherever you buy your books. And as always, we genuinely appreciate any sharing out, any commenting, any ratings, any reviews to help us spread the word and impact more contracting companies. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.